Welcome back to the Vulnerability School podcast. I'm so excited. A little update. We didn't have an episode last week, so this one's going to be amazing. The most special. My Healed Girl School program is launching again in November. It's going to be fully virtual with an option to add on in-person events. So that's exciting because anyone in the world can join. Today's episode is about one of my favorite topics and least favorite topics of all time, OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder. This is my friend, Noah Tolley, and he's amazing. I'm so excited to have him on today. One of my really, really good friends, might even say best friends, knows my deepest, darkest secrets. And we both experienced OCD. A little background is when I left the Mormon religion, I went on a podcast called Girls Camp, and I shared my story of leaving the church, and the episode's called OCD to Self-Love or something like that.
We met.
Oh yeah, we met.
We met, and then you were talking to me one night, and as you were talking to me, I was like asking more questions, and then I asked you more questions, and I'm like, you definitely have pretty bad OCD. Like based off of what I know and I understand, like, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I literally had no idea. And you,
cause I think in your podcast with the girls camp, it was like very premised on like, oh, I just like really struggle with religious OCD. And when I heard about the things you were experiencing, I'm like, yeah, no, definitely religious OCD. But then when we talked in person, I was like, oh, you have like, it's not just the simple, oh, I left the I could tell.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And you understand because so much experience with OCD.
Yeah.
You probably have the most intense OCD of anyone that I know. Well, and also maybe like someone that knows they have OCD. Yeah. I think a lot of people have it and they don't realize. You know what I mean?
No, it's definitely, I agree with that.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I think a lot of people don't really understand what OCD is. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. Like when I was talking to you, and then I learned that there's sexuality OCD, there's pedophilia OCD, there's relationship OCD, there's like so many different categories, moral OCD. I had no idea. So today, I just kind of want to jump into your story, how your OCD started, because it was at age 10, like you were so young. Yeah. And if I remember right, did your mom kind of figure it out, or just tell us how that happened?
Yeah, no, for me, I think like just thinking about my experience with OCD and like kind of how I've figured out that I've had OCD. I mean, I'm almost 25. And I started experiencing it when I was like probably 10, 11. Like when I started experiencing it, I don't know, like when I say things on this, like I don't fully like, I'm not qualified to like talk about it as if I'm like a psychiatrist or anything. So just like to make that clear, but I have like experienced it like longer than most people that I've met. I didn't know what was going on. And I don't think my parents fully knew what was going on because I was so young, but it was such an intense like feeling at such a young age that I just had no clue. And I started to like feel like so heavy every day. I remember like thinking at a young age, like, is this like what all the other kids are thinking? Like, are these kids having these thoughts at recess that I'm having? Cause I'm not enjoying it. Like life's not like fun for me. And so that was like pretty early on. And then I kind of just like kept going.
Do you feel like it started at that time, or do you think you were experiencing it before and you just realized what was going on at that age?
I don't know. Like I said, I maybe experienced it like even younger. I knew something was wrong when I was probably about 10 or 11, like grade 5, grade 6. I knew something was wrong with like what was going on in my head. So the first time I knew about OCD, this is going to sound crazy, but for those that don't like understand OCD, like I think OCD has been like glorified. It's like a thing that people go to for like, oh, I'm a little OCD about that. Or, like I have OCD tendencies, and people might, but I think if people really knew what OCD was, they would stop talking about it in like in a sense of like, oh yeah, like
I'm like already getting emotional just because like all of our chats about this have been so intense.
So the background of this, me and Jen have talked hours and hours and hours and hours about.
Because I never met anyone that understood what was going on in my brain. Never. Like no one ever. I've been to so many different therapists, but I didn't know I had OCD. Like I knew I had a little bit, like a tiny little glimpse of religious OCD, but I had no idea like it affected
extends everything
throughout
your life.
And one of the biggest things that like, and you can say this better than I can, but something about it, it's like one of the most debilitating illnesses. Like it's not just like a mental health thing, it's an actual illness. And I think when you said that to me, that was like life-changing. Because I was just like, holy shit, like this feels so intense for me. And it actually is intense. Like I'm not just dramatic. Like there's things that are going on in my brain that are not okay.
And I'll get more into that. But yeah, like I was saying, like, I think, yeah, people do like view it and glorify it. And and if they knew, and like you were saying, like Andrew Huberman has a podcast, it's really good. And studies and research shows it's like 7th in the most debilitating illnesses in the world. Cancer is above it. So just to give like people an idea of kind of the experience. But yeah, like even at a young age, I don't know why. There was one day, and this is going to like get into the details of it. For me, my OCD is really hyper focused on morals. It's called scrupulosity. And so scrupulosity is like everything I do and the reflection of who I am as a person. And OCD in general is, they call it the doubting disorder. So it's you're doubting everything you do, everything you say, how you say it, what you text, how you text it, when you texted it. I mean, it affects relationships. It affects relationships is the biggest thing. And that's why OCD is horrible, because it's the time waster. You waste lots of years. You waste, I mean, I won't get into that. But anyways, as a kid, I think, for me, I was like probably 10, 11, like I was saying. And like one day I had this, like, you probably know WWE. Have I talked to you about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason, as a kid, I grew up loving WWE.
Explain what that is first.
So WWE is like, I don't even know what it stands for because it's been so long, but it's like the wrestling, the fake wrestling, where you do like stunts and people are like hitting chairs on heads and like just the crazy, like, I don't know. But it's just like, it's pretty normal. It's a normal thing for kids to like. Anyways, I liked it. For some reason, I have no idea. Just one day, everything associated with WWE was like horrible and dark and terrible. And I was like 10. And so at age 10, I started obsessing so heavily about everything I did in the past that had anything to do with WWE. I remember like it got so intense that one day I stopped talking to my 2 best friends in elementary, just stopped, because I couldn't be around them because they reminded me of WWE, because we would play video games and we would pretend to wrestle.
Like in your mind, it just became like this bad thing.
Dark, horrible. And it would be every day. Every day I would be ruminating of past events, past things that I did, things that I said. I mean, it went on for like 1 to 2 years. And like, I remember 2 years later having my mom call my 4th grade teacher. I was in grade 6. I had her call my 4th grade teacher because I had like made a project in grade 4 and it had a WWE figure on the project paper. And I had my mom call my teacher 2 years later to go remove it from the library because I didn't want anyone to see my name with that WWE character on the page. And like, I remember I went downstairs one time because I had a WWE video game and it was in this little wooden box that we kept all the video games. And I remember like, it was horrible. I remember crying because I had to touch the box and I had to bring the box down and I had to like rip up all like the paper of the video game. And then I broke the CD, like the little DVD. And I remember like literally it was so bad that I couldn't look at the box for years. I hid the box, and anytime the box was brought out, like it would be so triggering that it these are like things that I was experiencing at 10.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was going on. And like,
did you feel crazy? Or were you just like...
It was so intense, like more intense than what people can even imagine. I was just a little boy, like, and I just like crying, putting it in the garbage upstairs. And I remember like, couldn't even look at the garbage anymore because the garbage bin had touched the bag, and it wasn't germs. It was the fact that I touched that. It was not morally good. Mm-hmm. WD was affiliated with being bad.
Yeah.
And so anything that had to do with that, and I would message people on Facebook from elementary to try to tell them that I didn't like WWE. So I would manipulate the conversation. I didn't care to reach out to them, but I'd reach out to them faking it because I'd be like, but at the end, all I wanted was what OCD wanted. And I just wanted them to know, hey, just so you know, I don't like WWE.
Yeah.
Like and that's like kind of where like I could go and like, I remember this is another crazy thing. And like, it's just crazy because I was 10, 11. And I remember being at a water park in Texas. This is where I knew, this is when it like really was like, I was like, Mom, I don't know what's going on, but this is really taking over everything that I do. I was on top of a water slide, and like you're at a water park, all the water's going, it's loud. And I remember singing a song in my head, but I worried that I may have worded the song, and I worried that the song might have been a WWE song. And I thought a family that was like 100 meters away, sitting on the grass away from the water park, I thought they saw me singing the song on top of the water. And so I was like, I had like a panic attack. I was like, I have to go tell the family.
But WWE is like not bad, right?
It's like a fun, like they come to Utah, they come to Salt Lake.
For some reason,
there was something that just made that anything to do with it horrible.
Yeah.
It was just the worst thing. And so those are the kind of like obsessive, crazy things that I was doing at a young age. And then you would think it got better, but it's progressively gotten worse. And it's progressively dove into anything, and pretty much anything that's been important in my life, it tries to tear everything down.
Yeah.
I mean, I could give you a whole 10-year of like every category, everything that I experienced. I couldn't hold kids for like 2 years in my life because I thought I was a pedophile.
Which is, for people that aren't familiar with OCD, that's so common.
Yeah, it's
like
very common
with
within like
OCD to like think that you are, like can't touch a child. Like I've experienced this my whole life. Like I get nervous that if I'm holding a kid, someone's going to look at me and think that I'm going to touch them or something. Like, and I don't know if it's because I was touched when I was little, and so then I'm like, just think that everyone thinks that about me, you know? But, and it like, sometimes it feels so crazy to like, say that, you know?
Yeah.
But it's something that's so common. So I'm happy that we're talking about it, you know? But I want to hear other ones that you have experienced. And then I want to know about like that conversation with your mom and like where that went when you did tell her you were kind of crazy.
I'll start with the mom. So I talked to my mom, and I think, so just to give an idea, like OCD is like you get obsessed about something, and you can have like obsessive personality. And a lot of people do. A lot of people do have an obsessive personality. It doesn't mean it's OCD. And this is what I've learned. OCD is really when it's like disrupting and hindering your life and your daily tasks that you have to do.
When it's like debilitating.
It's like debilitating.
Yeah.
That's when you're experiencing OCD. So for people that, like to think that they maybe have, but they're still functioning like a normal human, I wouldn't say, oh, that's like, because I've experienced times where like I literally will sit on a couch. I mean, it happened yesterday. Like I'll sit, I'll pace the house for hours, and I'm not doing anything. I'm just ruminating and thinking about something I did in the past and analyzing why I did it and what did I do and what did I say? How did I say? And it's the biggest time waster. In my 24 years, 25 or almost 25, I would say like, this is not even, I've thought about this like really deeply. I think I've lost like at least 2 to 3 years of my life. Genuinely lost it to just on a couch sitting there trying to figure something out and being lost in OCD. Because better than I, like, not better, but like, that when you get pulled into an OCD category or pulled into a theme, it drags you down.
It literally takes over.
Yeah,
like
it takes you over.
Out of your control, Yeah,
it's crazy.
And one of the craziest things I experienced when I eventually went to OCD therapy for a little bit. And one of the first things they asked me was, how many hours a day do you lose to your OCD? And I felt so validated. I'm like, the fact that that's even a question, that means that happens to so many people. Like I have lost so many hours of my life, or hours of every day to OCD. And I just I just thought I was like lazy or like my ADHD, like, but I do ruminate and just go, and then you go and you're just sucked in, and it's so draining. Yeah.
No, it really is. And so like to dive into like, I guess the things that I've experienced, like relationship OCD, if my high school girlfriend sees this, she's going to be like, whoa, I didn't really know what was going on. But like, if I look at my relationship OCD, so I had a girlfriend in high school, and I remember being so worried about being loyal to her and being like faithful in a way. Like it was so bad. I had a compulsion where in high school, when I would see other girls, I would have to look down at their foot, and then I'd have to like look up their knee and leg, and then I'd have to like briefly look at their face, and then I couldn't look any longer. And it was with every girl that I saw. I remember like walking by a girl, and if I like chewed my gum on the same side that she was, I worried that I was trying to show my jawline and I was trying to like look good for this girl. And so this was like another couple years of just like horrid. And I'm like, how am I supposed to like be in a marriage? I'm like, how am I
Would you
ever
ever
getting
open
married?
up to people? At this point, did you know it was OCD?
This is now 16. This is like, I'm like going to therapy, but I'm like never officially diagnosed, but I'm like, I know it is. Like this is where I start to like read up on it and start to study and research. And I'm like, holy hell, like I am like, it was. And then when I say like every day, I'm going to look at the camera every day, there's no days off. It's an everyday occurrence. And it has been for years. It sounds so dark, but it's literally when I wake up to when I go to bed. The first thing I think about when I wake up almost every day is some OCD category or something that it doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
So it's even driving here, it's an everyday thing. That was like a relationship OCD. And when I say like these little stories, like there's so much more to it. There's so much more crazy things I could really dive into, but it affects my relationships. And like the hardest thing has been this. And I think this is like where it becomes like really hard for me is the last 10 years, it's been morals. It's been, I served an LDS mission and I won't even get into that. Was crazy. That was insane. But all of my compulsions, so the things that I have to do to cure the obsessive thoughts, like when someone has OCD, they're obsessed about something and they have to do something to relieve the anxiety. And they do it each time, but it only makes it worse and it feeds the doubting monster. And so for years and years and years, my mother was my compulsion. And so whenever I would struggle or be like, Mom, did I do this? Do you think that was bad that I did this and this? What do you think about this? Do you think that's it? Do you think that's right? What do you think? And my mom was just being a good mother for years, but it slowly became, she was no longer, and this is like where it could get like more emotional for me, but she was no longer viewed as like my mom. She was viewed as like someone that I could use to heal my anxiety.
Yeah.
And so I think it's affected my relationship with my mom.
Cause it was just like using you need that reassurance. Like, please validate me, please validate me. And OCD thrives off of like validation and reassurance, which you taught me that.
Yeah.
You taught me that like, no, the answer is not getting reassurance.
Yeah.
Like, but that's so confusing, you know?
No, it's really hard. And it's hard because you learn to sit with it. And then sometimes it just doesn't go away. You feel so disassociated. And you feel like you're not in your body and you don't really, when you're somewhere, you're never present. Everything's complex. Like I've been at funerals and the whole funeral, I'm having OCD thoughts. I've been at like every Christmas. It's literally, I don't know why, like I'm just never present. I'm never mindful. But at the same time, it's like tough because I'm like saying this. And for people that don't know me, they're like, oh, this man's like,
yeah, even me right now. I'm like,
boy's like,
I feel like you're always present.
Exactly. And so, but that's where I was like, people would hear this and be like, oh, this man's like a non-functioning person. He doesn't do anything cool. He's probably pretty lazy. Probably doesn't, when like most people like that do know me, maybe would see me as the complete opposite.
Well, yeah, you're such a badass. I feel like one of the things about you that's so crazy is that like you are so successful in sales. Like OCD is so debilitating for me. I feel like I would be so much further in my career if I didn't have OCD sometimes. I mean, I think it's like sometimes I'm like, what's a superpower kind of like I'm grateful for it in a sense. But the fact that you go out in the summer and knock on doors all day and like are so successful at it is like mind blowing. Like it actually is. And I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it's hell. It's horrible. And like, I don't know, like sales is probably the worst possible profession for someone with moral OCD because you are worrying about everything you said, how you said, what you said. Did I say that wrong? Did I do that? You start to go down rabbit holes and that's almost every sale every day for me. Like it's tough because it tries to ruin everything. Like, I mean, you kind of know what a golden door is. Like this last summer I was able to do a golden door.
Which is like, that is, yeah.
It's like you're in the top 0.01% in the whole industry. And so it's pretty much not like very possible for anyone to do. And I was able to do it this summer and it took everything out of me. And so it's frustrating for me. And this will be kind of a cool insight for me and kind of an insight that I view going forward in my healing process and learning to manage it is I feel like I am doing the best at my worst. Like, I feel like for the last 10 years, I've been doing pretty cool, remarkable things that not a lot of people can do. But a lot of people don't realize that I'm doing all of this at my absolute worst, that I'm not like in a good, healthy place, but I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's really what's kind of kept me, I think, alive. Like, to be straight.
Yeah.
Like, to be very front is that idea of like, okay, if I'm doing these things at my worst, what could I accomplish? Like, even a little bit better at my best. And I seriously think I could do anything. And that comes from a place too of like, my mind has gone to such extremities and has dipped into corners and cracks that I don't think a lot of people have dipped into. So my capacity to go further than anyone else is so much like lengthier. And like I'm not the brightest candle in the room, but damn, like I can burn long.
Yeah.
And I can burn longer than anyone else. And that's where I've kind of been able to tap into that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but
no, I love it.
I have like
No,
so much I could say.
But I want you to tell us a little, like some more of like the different OCD things that you've experienced.
Yeah.
Like
I
different
could dive in.
categories.
Yeah,
Because I think that's so beneficial for people to know, because like even there's like suicidal OCD or like relationship OCD, you know, like people just don't understand that there's so many different aspects to it. It's not just like, oh, I'm a clean freak, you know?
Yeah, no. So if you dive into like moral OCD, scrupulosity, I think scrupulosity is like a foundation for all the other categories because it's all morals. And if you think everything we do is moral OCD, like, I mean, if you have moral OCD, it's everything. Did I lie? Did I do this? Was I bad in this? Did I do this? Do I need to apologize for this? I mean, it dives into all categories. Kids, you know, you start to dive into everything. You start to think you're a murderer. You start to like it questions everything. And so I've dove into like probably most categories within like the moral OCD, but we've talked about relationships. We kind of talked about the WWE at a young age. If I dove into my mission, like that's another one, like for people that aren't familiar, like the LDS church, like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like I served a full-time mission. I went to England, Manchester. For me, it was so hard. You have a white handbook and it has rules that you follow, and you follow the rules, and you're an obedient missionary. When you're an obedient missionary, you get blessings. You baptize more, and you're taught that you'll be blessed more, and you'll be happier, and you'll have more joy when you follow the commandments, when you do those things. And so on my mission, it was like, there was the commandments first that I had to follow. With someone with OCD, it's like, you're never following the commandment. Everything I do, I'm sinning. And so, but then you add in like a white handbook on top of the commandments that you're already living. And so now I have a white handbook and full of rules. And for people that don't have OCD, they'd be like, oh dude, it's just a white handbook to keep people safe. For me, I was like, no. Like if I remember I woke up at 6:31 one day on my mission and I had a panic attack. I still functioned like a beast that day. I was still like the best missionary that I knew. But the whole day I felt like I was not worthy to teach about Jesus because, well, if we're missionaries and we're teaching people to follow the prophet created the handbook. I'm breaking the handbook. Therefore, I don't follow the prophet. So I cannot teach about people.
It's crazy because like a little thing, like waking up 1 minute late, like I feel like I totally understand it in my brain. It's like you literally feel the feeling all day, like you, like almost like you murdered someone. Like you did something so horrible and you can't think about anything else because in your brain, it's like to the extreme that you literally killed someone or you did something horrible.
It's a horrible, horrible feeling. And the hardest thing about my mission it was the OCD. The hardest thing about my mission was being misunderstood by everyone. And everyone being like, Elder Tully was just a hard ass and he was rude and he was always rebuking us because we were being disobedient. That was hard for me because I didn't know I was just acting in accordance to the horrible feelings that I had every day. And I was trying to be a good leader because I thought we were supposed to correct people, but I did it because it caused me so much anxiety. And so I'd correct people. And so don't get me wrong. I mean, I did really well on my mission. I was really successful, but it came with a price. Everything comes with a price, but it was heavy. It was definitely heavy. And that's one example. Like this is every day of 2 years. Like every single day there was something. I mean, there's so many rules. There's so many commandments. The way my mind worked was like every day there was going to be something that I did wrong. And when I did it wrong, it was like I got to repent. Before my mission, I lost like 30 pounds. I was a dang good kid in high school. I never, like the good kid of like what you would consider a good LDS boy. Never drank, never smoked, never partied, never went to a party, worked hard in school, was just like a good solid. I feel like I was a good solid kid. Like didn't do anything bad with my girlfriend in high school. Like I remember going before my mission.
Where you grew up, you're from Canada.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of Mormons there or no?
Yeah. So I'm like the Utah County of Canada.
Oh,
it's
okay,
like Southern Alberta. So there's like a lot of LDS people in that community. And I remember I saw my bishop probably 12 or 13 times. And I would go into my bishop with sheets. I typed up a whole essay of everything that I've ever done. And it wasn't just that, because OCD is so funny and so creative and so manipulative. It was like, oh, you did it. You're good. You passed me the sheets. I read them. It never was good enough. So I'd pass them the sheets and then I'd look at the sheets after and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I missed a grammar. I missed a comma. So it probably didn't seem as sincere. And so like OCD is so funny because you'll try to confess something, but if you confessed it in the wrong way, like it's kind of like you have an OCD thought, like I'm a murderer. And then you go confess and be like, I don't think I am a murderer, but you know what? No, I'm a murderer. I just am. Because I'm just going to go, because like, even if I try to say it, but I say it in like a tonality that doesn't sound sincere, I'm just going to say I'm a murderer. And so I would go to the bishop and just be like, maybe like I could have like sexually abused my girlfriend. And like, I did. And so like you would say these kind of things and
even though you didn't.
It's horrible because you're like, it makes you question who you are in every category,
totally,
every sense. And you begin to like, I am.
And then if that is paired with like someone in your life that's maybe narcissistic or like that tells you who you are, and that's like the way that I grew up, like that is so detrimental. Like that will literally kill you because then people start telling you who you are and you already think all these bad thoughts about yourself. And so then you believe what they tell you. And then like, but it's like this battle in your head because you're like, wait, but to my core, I know that's not me, but they're saying that. So I think maybe that is me. Yeah. And you're just like, so.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Yeah. When you're already so hard and so crazy manipulative on yourself, that when you bring in someone else that could have those same characteristics, and I've had bad experiences, and it could really like, it'll tear you down for sure.
If someone kind of tells you who you are, or you don't fully understand who you are because your brain is telling you so many different things. Like for me, if I stand up and I have like boundaries with someone, I feel like the worst person ever. And I will apologize a million times, even though I didn't do anything rude. I just like set a boundary. I've noticed this a lot in relationships. I'll just be like, hey, that didn't feel great to me. And they're like, oh, okay. And I will apologize to the death. Like I just like forever, I feel so guilty about it. And so I don't know. It's so interesting. I want to know like your perspective, and I want to know how you've kind of shifted these beliefs about yourself, or how you've kind of worked through your OCD, and like what you're doing, like what has helped you the most and maybe what hasn't, you know, especially like with your relationship with yourself in a sense.
I think where I changed a lot was when I started to understand that it was not about getting rid of the OCD. It was about like finding a way to manage it in a sense. And I think that's when people, in my opinion, when people experience OCD, if they can't come to the conclusion that it's not going to leave, that they have to, the thing about OCD is like, it's like you can't run away from it, but you can't fight it. It's like a demon, and you have to kind of learn to just chill with the demon and to just like sit at the same table with him and just like, what's up? Like it's literally, that's the only way you can do it. And sitting with demons is scary. And when you sit with demons at a young age and you sit with demons for years and years, it just naturally, you start to feel dark more and you start to kind of feel that. But I don't think that's how it's meant to be. And I think I'm finding that there's more, like for me, like we talked about, like I'm going to New York in December. I'm seeing a functional medicine because for 10 years now, or over a decade, I have like been feeling so horrible every day. And like Western medications, like, oh, you're low on serotonin. Let's give you some SRIs and just pop those suckers and you'll feel better. So I've been on like 6, 7 different antidepressants. I've seen probably 6 or 7 different therapists. I've done exposure therapy. I've tried it all. Like I've literally gone through everything and it just, nothing really helps it. And so I found like a functional medicine doctor in New York, and he pretty much relates the health of your gut relating to your mind, and how your gut is like your second brain. And a lot of people don't know that. I'm learning that. I'm listening to podcasts and educating myself on that. And so that's kind of the path that I'm going to take further. But I think the thing that's helped me the most is the phrase, like, if it's easy, do it easy. If it's hard, do it hard. Just get it done. And that's kind of how I've had to kind of go about it.
Yeah.
Is like, well, most days it's hard.
Yeah.
So I gotta still function. I gotta still do things despite the hard. Yeah.
Yeah. When has been like the darkest times of your OCD, would you say?
I think when I was in a relationship with a girl probably about two years ago, and it was I loved her like wholeheartedly. And like, I thought I was going to marry her and everything. And, you know, I thought she was the one and that kind of thing. And that's hard because then as soon as I started to feel those things of like love and romance and like, oh my gosh, like this is wonderful. Like I like this girl. OC was like, boom, like hell no. Like we're not letting this go any further. And that's what it felt like. And so I just catastrophized her. What's the word? Catastrophize? Is that a word? Whatever it is. I mean, I was sabotaging this poor girl like none other.
In what ways?
Because my OCD, it's usually focused on me, but when you're in a relationship, sometimes it will focus on the other person and everything they're doing, and you doubt everything they did or everything they said or everything they did in the past.
Wait,
and
I have an example of this.
Yeah,
this is so crazy, but I dated this guy for a while, and I was
over here.
I was so fixated on his posture. So fixated. So fixated. Yeah. And I never knew why. I would be so obsessed. Like we'd be with our friends, and I'm a pretty freaking nice person, especially because all day in my head I'm telling myself I'm mean. So I try to be extra nice, you know? And I'm such a people pleaser. But I would be like, and I think I was meaner to him in my head than I was actually to him. But he would be like walking and I'd be like, your posture. And he'd what the fuck? It was so toxic, but I had no idea. Once you taught me about relationship OCD, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I need to call him and tell him sorry, but I never did. But if you're listening, I'm really sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you can get into it. Like there's a type of OCD, and I found this out. It's called retroactive jealousy OCD. And it's pretty much going in the past of your partner's past and getting details about their past relationships, past things they did. And you start
Guilty over here.
We all do it. It's a natural part, but it ends. You find what you need about your partner's past, and maybe it's unsettling, but anyone that doesn't experience OCD is just like, okay. And they let it sleep on it. And it's like, okay, it's, you know, that's, if I want to proceed, I'll proceed. For me, it was like, I was just like so hard on this girl for there was a reason that I just couldn't control. And it was horrible because I knew how I felt, how I've treated myself at a young age, all the way up until this. I know how horrible I felt about myself. I knew how horrible I treated myself. And so now that it was reflecting on someone else of how I treated them and how I didn't trust them and I doubted them, and that was really hard for me to see, because it got so far down the rabbit hole that I literally could not sleep. I couldn't eat, and I loved her so much.
What ways would this manifest? Like, what would you do?
Like I would ask her questions about past relationships, and I would get the answer and be like, okay. And then a day later, and this is another thing, this is probably way too complex for people to think, like, because I've done so much research on it, and then you experience false memory OCD. You've asked them a question, you got the answer, 2 weeks go by, you start to think about the conversation. You go, oh, did they say that? And then you have to re-clarify. But then you might get a different answer from what they said. You're like the ultimate, like, you think you know everything. Oh, no, 2 weeks ago you said that. And they're like, I don't think I said that. And you go, well, why do you think you don't think you said that? And it's like, then you go down this rabbit hole. You did say that. And it's like, they're like, okay, I did. And it's like, oh, then why? You know, OCD is not you.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned is OCD is like a teenage boy, like yelling at its mom. It wants answers now, and it'll do anything it can to get to answers and to get the relief. And if that means destroying a relationship with someone, then so be it. But it's so hard because I'm such a loving, sensitive, kind person that like will give my whole heart to someone. And so when that was happening, my true feelings were like, you do trust her, you do love her, and you do care about her. But the OCD was like doubting everything. And so it was like this battle, this internal battle. And it got so bad that like I dropped out of school. I was going to a school here in Salt Lake. I dropped out of school, threw a bag of clothing in my car, drove to Canada, and then admitted myself in the hospital. And I just laid on the hospital floor with my mom. And I was like, I'm done. I drove home. I recorded a bunch of voice memos of like, I love yous, and like pretty much all the close people in my life. I made them like a voice recording, and yeah, I was done. I don't remember the 12-hour drive. I was so disassociated, in such a bad place mentally that I don't remember the 12-hour drive. I just remember, just laying on and I was like, I really like, it was truly, and it wasn't like, we talk about like someone that like everyone's had, maybe not everyone, but like we've all maybe had dark thoughts, but I was really done. Like I was just so angry, and I was just so mad that I didn't have any relief, no answers. And it was tough because God is part of my life, but I felt recently, and I felt then, that I'm just like, why don't you like help me, please? Like give me some relief. Like give me a little bit of like peace so I can like function a little bit better, so I can be like a good boyfriend that I know I am, or be a good, because I am. Like it's kind of like this, like you know who I am. And I look up because I'm like, I've had some gnarly prayers. I've had some screaming prayers of like, please just give me something.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's been a battle for a long time, but
I like empathize with that so much to make me cry.
Yeah.
I think there's just been so like people just don't get it. Like you literally, it's like you have a demon in your mind, and like it's like something you can't control. Like I went through a breakup, and I remember calling you. This is when I went and did ayahuasca, because I was literally at my breaking point. Like I was not okay, and I called suicide hotline, and I just sat on the phone with them. I remember feeling so empty and so numb, and my entire body, I had no feelings.
Yeah.
Like I just was done. I got in the cold plunge and I couldn't feel cold. It was the weirdest experience of my entire life. And I was like, I'm not okay. And like, and I know you can relate to this. Like so many times I'm like, this isn't fair. Like it's not fair. Why is this happening to me? And so many people don't even understand what OCD is. And so like when I say I have OCD, they kind of just view it as like, oh, she experiences anxiety. But it's like, no, like I feel like there's someone in my brain trying to kill me. You know what I mean?
Self-destruct constantly, self-doubt constantly. And so,
How did you like get out of that?
It's not like, well, I'm still in it. Maybe not like the suicidal aspect. Yeah. I
So
still,
were you in like a mental hospital?
honestly, I don't even know where I was. I got there, went to the emergency room, went with my mom, told them that I wanted to kill myself. Yeah, it was obviously hard for my family. It was like, and I've experienced it other times. Like I experienced it 6 weeks ago. And I talk about this in another podcast actually about my golden door in sales. And like, I remember the last week I was like, I'm done. This is too heavy. I cannot do this job. This is like, so yeah, I've had a lot of experiences, but that was probably the darkest, where I was like, oh, like I'm actually just dropped out of school. I'm like, I cannot function. I'm not eating. I'm not sleeping. Because the thing about OCD is like a lot of people that experience severe OCD, they use sleep as an escape. And we've talked about this.
That's like my coping mechanism.
But when you can't sleep to escape, it's horrible. It's like this, it's the worst thing, because you have no escape and you get sleep deprived and you're not eating, and then your body is horrible in these horrible states, and you're not working out, and it just like deteriorates every aspect of life, because then when you're sleep deprived and when you're not eating, you're not functioning and you're not present, and it's just like everything kind of slowly just starts to fall apart. And so that's how I've felt for a long time, of just like falling apart. But I don't know. You just kind of, you have to make it work, and it's hard. Yeah,
it's crazy. Even like, and OCD just comes in the tiniest little forms. Like even right now, I was like, if I put my water bottle right here, Noah's going to want to think that I'm done with this episode and I want to finish. And then it's going to make him uncomfortable. Like what?
Yeah.
Like, but then my brain just goes there. Like it just does it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's,
No, yeah. I've had multiple OCD thoughts just sitting here, but and that's the thing is like, I don't know. Like I'm very particular in who I talk to about my OCD. I'm very like, this will be my first time. A lot of my friends and family, this will be their first time hearing that I have OCD. And I think it'll be good, but I think it'll like open people's eyes to how gnarly it can be. And I think your story, my story, like even what I've said today is like, there's so much more. Mm-hmm. There's years of different things every day, different things. That's ultimately the hardest thing is you're being present is the most important thing we can be in this life. When you're present, nothing else matters. But with OCD, you're never present. You're either living in the past or living in the future. And so you're never at a state of like beauty. You're never at a state of simplicity. You're never in touch with your soul. You're never in touch with God. You're only in touch with a doubting like monster. That's who you're holding hands with constantly. And sometimes you just have to be courageous and brave and tell the monster to just stay in the corner and just sit there.
Because your OCD has a name.
Yeah. His name's Jeremy. His name's Jeremy. That's what I call him. He's a bitch and I hate him. Sorry for cussing, Mom. But he is. And I talked to my therapist. I can cuss at Jeremy. So I do. But he really is like, he is not nice. But he also has helped me do some pretty insane things. And if Jeremy's willing to help me, I'm like, all right, let's do this. But for the most part, he's not willing to help me. Yeah. But when he is in those 1%, I'm like, all right, let's do it. Like we're going together. Cause, and that's kind of the relationship I built with it, but it's still a work in progress. Like I literally am like this whole next 6 months, my whole investment of time and money is my health and doing what I can to be better and to do better. So I can not only do the best at my worst, but do even better than my best at my best. And that's kind of like my motivation right now is like, oh, if I can do something like a golden door at my absolute worst, no sleep, no eating, just like terrible, man, what could I do even a little better? And so that's the theme that I'm living in right now is like, oh my gosh.
And I really do believe sometimes this is so even hard for me to even think about, but that we were given this for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I think both of us are so passionate about figuring it out, you know? And I think it's so awesome because I think you're going to be able to help a lot of people. Like, I'm really excited for you to go to New York and I want you to come back on and just after you go. Yeah. And we can like talk about the things that you learned because, and you have learned so much. Like, I feel like you know so much about your OCD. And I want to know what you would tell someone that's like just finding out now about their OCD. Like what would be your best advice? Like maybe someone listening to this that it's like that
they're probably like some people are probably listening to this like you just sitting in the back just her jaws drop so many. I think anyone that's just like realizing or just figuring out like what I would say is like to like give yourself grace and like don't try to like figure it out all right now. Because you're not going to.
Because even you knew, right? When you were telling me about all the OCD, I started obsessing so much about OCD. I was researching every single day. I'd send you new little things that I found and you'd be like, Jenner, you're OCDing about OCD. And I'm like, oh, shit.
It's a thing too. And the thing is too, like, that's what I would say. I would spiritually, if you're watching and I can't be with you, I'd put my arm around you and just like, I would just say like, give yourself grace. Like, just be patient and like, it's horrible right now, but like it's gonna take time.
Are you still in OCD therapy? Are you still going to Cameron?
Times I've like recycled that over and over again. Yeah. I'm not seeing Cameron right now.
Like, do you recommend OCD therapy?
Yeah, I think OCD therapy is like good for anyone. I think anyone that's like starting like practical, I guess that wasn't really practical stuff that I would say is like give yourself grace because that's not really practical. Practical things that I would say is someone like just figuring out would be to like number one, like don't do what you did, like where you're like, oh my gosh, research all this, figure all this, and then get OCD about OCD. It's like, oh.
And like, OCD also, it feels like an addiction.
Yeah, it is.
I get addicted to so many little things, like information OCD. I think you talked to me about that. Like, I got obsessed with that, or I'm obsessed with adoption. If someone tells me they're adopted, I want to find their family, and I will literally stay up all night to find their family and figure out more things for them. Or like that kid went missing in Texas with a cell stream. I was obsessed. I wanted to figure out where he was. I didn't even know him. He lived in Texas, and I was literally obsessed. I didn't sleep for like 3 days.
This has been like the biggest help for me is the way I've categorized and the way I've figured out like life, the way I view life now is like 3 components. I think like we have a body, and then we have a mind, and then we have a spirit. And the spirit's not, and I don't just mean like the spirit of the Lord. We have a soul. We have something that the spirit and the soul understands things that the mind cannot comprehend. And you have to be able to understand that. And the mind has no limits. The mind will go to places that no one wants to go. It's dark. It has no limits. It just keeps going and it keeps imagining. The body feels things, and the body experiences horrible, dark, anxious, terrible. You feel pain. You feel all of these things. And the body and the mind are always fighting against you. You can say, oh, it's all in the mind. In my belief, it's all in the spirit. And so your mind's always fighting against you, your body's always fighting against you, but the spirit always knows. And it's always simple, and it's always just like profoundly true. Where the mind will dive into the details and, well, why is that true? Why? And the soul is just like, that's how it is, period. And that's like been the best help for me, is like relying on things and feelings that people don't understand, that your mind doesn't comprehend. That's where you find peace, is like, okay, it's not in my control. My body's freaking out. My mind's freaking out, but my spirit's pretty simple and confident. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
I really love that. And I feel that's so, so true. Like, and I feel like
there's no other, you can't find more answers.
Yeah.
Because it's always going to get worse. Mm-hmm. So the spirit's like, no.
Yeah. And with OCD too, like you're never satisfied. Ever. Like you find another answer, and you find even like relationship OCD. Never. Tell me about your past. They tell you about your past. You want to know more. You don't believe them. It's like
nothing
is
good enough.
Never ending thing.
Never. And that's why it's one of like the 7th most debilitating things, is because it never is satisfied. And that's where you have to be like, all right, well, you got to sit with the demon a little bit and learn to kind of embrace it, or him or her.
Yeah. Sitting with the demon of OCD. That's what we're going to title this.
It's true. That's what it is. That's the only way to find relief. But this is one of the last things I would say is, I do think that it doesn't have to be dark all the time. And anyone that's listening, that's experiencing it, I feel it still, and I have felt it in the past. I don't think, this is the conclusions, I don't think it's how life is supposed to be lived. I don't think it is. And if there's a creator, if you believe in a God, or you believe in a soul or spirit or something higher than you, I don't think they actually think that's how it should be either. I think there is room for joy, and there's room for peace, and believing that is like the first thing to like kind of recovering. And I think, and it's taken me a long time to get to that point where like, I actually do think we're meant to have joy and peace. Yeah.
And do you think that it's something that is curable, or do you think it's something you're going to live with for the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think mine's going to leave. I think it's going to stay, but I think changes in my lifestyle, changes in things that I can control are going to help it, my gut health. But I think it's going to be around forever. But that's not a bad thing. Like, it's not a bad thing, because I'm going to learn how to like manage it better, because I have to. I have no other choice.
Yeah.
And that's also another thing that's helped me, is like, I have no choice. I have to. Like, I have to. When I have a kid, when I have a wife, when I have some like bigger things that are bigger than me, I have to wake up and be like, I have to figure this out.
Yeah.
Not me figure it out, my soul. I have to like do the things that make me feel happier and joy and be healthier. And you know what I mean? Like,
and I think something that's really crucial is being with people that are willing to understand you as well, and understand what you are going through. Because I feel like in your family or in relationships, like even in my life still, like there's so many people in my life, you can totally relate. Like they just don't have OCD. They do not understand what's going on in my brain. Yeah. Like even like my parents, my dad is my best friend, but like I just know that he's never been theirs. And I feel like you can't fully understand something that you haven't experienced. Mm-hmm. And so I just think it's so important to surround yourself with people that are willing to try to understand.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, that will drive you
even insane. And that's why you have to be really careful with who you open up to about OCD. Not everyone is going to be your aid and help.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that, and you have to find people that are willing to have grace and understand and learn more.
Yeah. So. Okay. So my favorite question to ask is, if you could have everyone in the world understand one thing, what would it be?
This is like a goofy quote, but it's like a quote that I've recently in this season of time been living off of. And maybe in 2 years, I'd have a different answer. And maybe a year ago, I'd have a different, but right now this would be my answer. And the quote is, everyone wants grape juice, but no one wants to pick the grapes. And the reason I love that quote is because we all want to be great. We all want to have a perfect relationship. We all want what great and phenomenal people have, but no one wants to do what it takes to get there. And all I would say is like, be the one to pick the grapes. Like, be the one to not find a way out, but find a way in. And sometimes a way in is only through. So be the one to go through and be the one to break through. And like, that would be like my number one thing is just pick the grapes. Don't be the guy sitting and wishing he had grape juice. Just go make grape juice. And that's what I would say.
I love that. And I feel like that really ties everything in, especially with OCD. Like, it's not something you can't just avoid it. Like, you gotta like sit with it and figure it out. Sit with the demon, sit
with him.
Yeah.
You have to.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay. And you are starting a podcast. Did you decide on a name yet?
I think it's going to be called Grit and Grace.
Okay,
I think those are it's
going to be amazing. So everyone needs to go listen, and I'll tag you in all the stuff on Instagram.
Jenna will be on the podcast too.
Yeah.
It'd be sick.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I definitely want you to come back on and we can talk about, I'm literally going to put this one, part 1 with Noah.
Post New York.
Yeah. Post New York to hear about all the things that you experienced and any breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Hoping for lots. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And anything else you want to say to our listeners?
No.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, brothers and sisters. In the name of mental health. Amen.
Amen.